Hey, I'm here from 10,000 Foot View, and I've got another Google Ads quick tip for you today. So this is going to be a really quick video. I'm just going to walk through how we configure client account settings inside of Google Ads. And sometimes if you miss some things in here, you can have some pretty serious repercussions. So I'm just going to go through this to show you how we do it. And noting that each account is unique and there are certain circumstances where you may use a different setting, but this is kind of how we normally do it. So account name, self-explanatory. And by the way, if you had some weird account name in here and you handle a bunch of accounts, we will always change this to the client's name, kind of the popular name, so that it's easy to find amongst the dozens or hundreds of accounts you may work with. Account status active, pretty self-explanatory. Data protection contacts. So this really has to do with the EU. So if you do any type of advertising in the EU, this is required. You will need to add a data protection contact so that Google can contact you if there are any issues with that policy. Time zone. This is kind of important to get right because if you, let's say, the advertising is to California, but your time zone is -4 GMT, which is Eastern time. You need to be very careful if you're going to run ad schedules that you set up the appropriate times that you adjust for that. If you have this wrong for whatever reason and you want to fix it, Google can change that for you. You just have to contact support. I heard in the past they have like a limit, they only do it 3 times. But if you're doing it more than once, you've really messed up. So just know that you can change that if it's something that's really important. Otherwise, just be careful when you do set up your campaigns because campaigns you target in the Eastern time zone versus Pacific, those ad schedules will be based on whatever the time zone default is here. Okay, auto tagging, you almost always want this on. There are some edge cases where you don't want auto tagging, but they're really rare because this will just make sure that Google Analytics actually tracks your campaigns accurately and provides the most robust data set. So again, it's pretty rare you want to turn this off, but there are some cases for it. Tracking template. So this is used for a few different things. One would be if you use CallRail, for example, you're going to want to add at least the keyword at a minimum, which is this, but we generally now we add like a full list of UTM tracking codes so we can provide as much data to CallRail as possible. And then the other thing you'll see in here often is ClickCease, where they use a code in here to pass the URL information to ClickCease so that it can identify those clicks as they come in. And then there are others, any third-party tool that you want to track, like value track parameters and things like that, you want to have this set up. Call reporting, if you are using call reporting, we do recommend you turn this on. You may also integrate your call tracking with a third-party company such as CallRail, and that allows for data sharing between the two systems, which is really nice to have. Negative keywords, this is a relatively new feature. Google added about 3 months ago, I guess. And it's an account level negative keyword list, and we are limited to 1,000, which sounds like a lot, but isn't when you look at some accounts. But where this is important is this works globally across the entire account. It includes Performance Max, whereas there was no other way in the past to block keywords except if you contacted Google support and they added a list for you. And they can still do that, by the way, if you want to block specific keywords on Performance Max. You can do that through your rep. But this allows you to do it again across all of your campaigns at once. And it also blocks placement type keywords. So that's important if you're running display ads or even in PMax, it'll block placements related to those keywords. So if you don't want to block those, then you do need to run traditional negative keyword lists, or have your Google rep add those negatives to PMax. But generally, it's a great feature we love, because there are almost always certain keywords that you just want to block across the board, that just don't make sense to run. So just keep in mind, you can only block 1,000 here, so don't start copying all of your negative lists over to this. Usually that's not going to make sense. Okay. Auto apply recommendations. You want to have this turned off. Always off. There's no reason to turn these on. It just means Google will be doing all kinds of applying all kinds of recommendations in the background. You'll have no idea what's happening. You may see like weird spikes in performance, usually negative, and you won't know how those happen until you start going into the change log and your auto apply log to figure out, oh, Google like removed a bunch of negative keywords that I actually wanted to keep running, and that kind of thing. So always off, just always off. Lead forms, we don't use these for any of our clients. They do make sense on certain things like lead magnet type campaigns, where you want to make it easy for people to fill out your lead form. There's also quite a bit of setup required with these. We have tested them in the past. They don't really work very well, so we just don't bother. And then the last thing here is customer match. And by default, Google will use your customer match list that you've uploaded, and they will not use conversion tag based customer lists. So if you don't have a list, but you do have a substantial remarketing list you can use converters, then you want to activate this instead. But I mean, this is kind of the default's okay as long as you're going to be uploading a list. If you aren't, again, this is your other option. And this is also used for some conversion configuration as well. So it's definitely a good thing you want to set up. So that is it for account settings. And there used to be more in here, and some things have kind of moved off into their own menus. And one of those things is placement settings or safety. They call it content suitability, which I will do another video on that shortly. But that'll give you a good idea kind of to set up the account settings for success. And that is it for today. I will see you next time.